Here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about, lots of fun, lots of entertainment coming from our GOP friends. It's been all about the baby formula, Formula Gate. It's what it's been all about the last couple of days. Nice diversion. Haven't been talking about the abortion issue. Haven't been talking about, well, anything else. Haven't been talking about inflation unless they want to, because Joe Biden did all this. In fact, Rick Scott had pictures of baby formula on shelves across the world. Kevin McCarthy, Americans need a plan immediately to solve the shortage of baby formula in our country. The silence from the Biden administration and the FDA is unacceptable as parents across the country are worried about feeding their children. The voices all over the place on the right. The outrage. Oh, the outrage. Marjorie Trainwreck Green. We could give billions of dollars to Ukraine, but we won't feed the children. We love the children. And then they're like, screw those kids down on the southern border. We should let them starve. I love the headline over at The Independent. It was great. It was, almost half of the Republicans believe we should feed the children, down on the border. Where you go, wait a second, shouldn't that headline be more the majority of Republicans think those babies on the southern border, the non-citizens, the illegals should freaking die? Shouldn't that be the headline? Answer, yes, that's what it should be. So was I surprised when the vote came down and 192 Republicans voted against providing a meager $28 million to the Food and Drug Administration to actually do something about the shortage of baby formula, to actually do something? Was I surprised that 192 Republicans voted against action? No, not at all. Not even a little bit. And the fact that there were 12 Republicans that stepped forward and said, maybe we should have the courage to, this is the legislative body. This is the body the House where the passions of the people are supposed to rage and where action happens. Maybe we should do something. So all of the Democrats, all 219 of them, and 12 Republicans voted for $28 million to help ease the baby formula shortage, the great baby formula shortage of 2022, which, in this moment, and this is this is the kind of thing that just makes you go, please explain how we get into this moment where the outrage, the finger pointing, the talking points on the F channel are more important than actually fixing the problem, because it's about political wins and losses. It's not about making lives better. So when the Democrats finally come, put a piece of legislation forward, you get the Republican Party saying, no, not going to do it. But we did get nice pictures from Rick Scott. It is. And, like I said, they've been saying outwardly how much they love the children. Oh, they love the children. Except for those down on the border. Screw them. Let them starve. Which is an interesting kind of juxtaposition, especially since today in Oklahoma, they passed what is now considered the strictest abortion law in the country. The way I understand this, and I'm not a scientist, I'm not an expert, but the way I'm getting this is it is now considered there's no such thing as abortion anymore. And the second the egg is fertilized, and I don't know when that is, and I don't think anyone can say that. I've been saying that eventually we're going to get to the Monty Python era of every sperm is sacred. So teenage boys, be very careful. This is kind of that, as I'm understanding it, that the second the egg is fertilized, that is now a human person to be protected with rights. And I got to wonder, is that when we start counting their voting rights? I'm not sure, which means ultimately that the Plan B pill will be outlawed in Oklahoma. That will be a crime. And again, I don't know how you're going to adjudicate this, because as I understand it, you take this as a precaution. That I don't know. But for all those people who are saying, no, they're not going to come after contraception, here it is. This is the beginning. And this is kind of scary stuff. Now, you go, well, why are they doing this, Rick? Well, a lot of reasons. Power control, that's a big part of it. Other part of it, Matt Schlapp. He's the head of CPAC. He was speaking at CPAC Hungary. That's right. CPAC has gone global. CPAC Hungary. Crazy Pack has gone global. He's claiming this is how you solve white replacement theory. This is how you solve that white replacement. You make those white women have children. I'm not making this up. If you say there's a population problem in a country, but you're killing millions of your own people through legalized abortion every year, if that were to be reduced, some of that problem is solved. You have millions of people who can take many of these jobs. It's amazing how he goes right to the jobs. And I said this a while ago. If you remember, years and years ago, Tom DeLay said, we wouldn't need these immigrants if we had all these poor people having more poor people kids. Because we'd have good, cheap labor, domestically grown, a good domestic supply of infants. He asked the question, how come nobody brings that up? If you're worried about this quote unquote replacement, why don't we start there? It's like he thinks he's Magellan discovering something. They've been saying this stuff to themselves for years. He just now feels emboldened to say it. And it's amazing to me because the Republicans who tell us that they care so much about the babies have let the cat out of the bag. They don't give a rat's behind about children. They don't even care about the unborn. It's about the power. It's about the control. We've been hearing about gas prices. Here's another great one. We've been hearing about, Joe Biden, he made gas prices go crazy. It's all Joe Biden's fault. But what have they actually done? Nothing. So today, you had Kim Schreier, Democrat representative from Washington, and Katie Porter, Democratic representative from California, who put forth a piece of legislation to do what I've been calling for a very long time. Make it illegal for gouging. The fact that the oil companies in the first quarter of this year, the first 3 months, have pocketed a cool $100 billion in profit, whereas all of last year they only pocketed $193 billion. They're going to far exceed last year's profits, and they far exceeded the year before's. Over a 30-year period, our heavy four pocketed almost $2 trillion in profit. But I know. They got to make money, Rick. That's why they're in business. Yeah, they're in business to gouge you and me. And this is where this piece of legislation that would look into this. And if they found gouging, if they found excessive price during energy emergencies, now there was a caveat that this would be considered an energy emergency time because of what's going on in Russia, that if you found them gouging us, you could hold them accountable. Let's play a little game. How many Republicans do you think voted for it? Let's see. Were there 12? No. Was there one? No, there was not one. Not a single Republican voted to say, maybe gouging is a bad thing. Not one of them voted to do anything. They love complaining. Oh my gosh, my conservative friends, the grievance crowd, oh my gosh, they so love to complain, to whine. Oh, the whining. Oh, they love it. It's like a national pastime for conservatives. Whereas in the past, they used to believe that you could solve problems. Now they just love complaining. Because these are people who have no idea how to fix anything. They love causing problems. Oh yeah, love causing problems. Love it. They love pointing problems out, especially the ones that they've created, and then blaming someone else for it. But boy, when it comes down to actually doing something, actually picking up the shovel and cleaning up the mess, no. No, can't do that. That would be, I don't know, like doing their freaking jobs. I look at also, you can't make this stuff up. Everybody you talk to agrees we have a student loan crisis for a generation. Everyone agrees. There's a problem. Houston, we have a problem. Now, we can all disagree on how we go about this. I have problems with absolute wiping out debt forgiveness because I see the landmines politically. If we don't fix the problem, then we've just picked a generation of winners without the future who are going to be losers. There's a lot that has to be done here, and I understand that completely. We have to do something to help a generation who really did. They got screwed. But again, you're not hearing solutions from Republicans. All you're hearing is no. They're the party of no ideas, no solutions, just complaints. So when the GOP came out with their Student Loan Accountability Act, oh my gosh, I love this. No one does BS naming of things like the Republicans do. I mean, they really are good. Again, these are the business people, though, right? They're the people who sold you a rock and told you it was a pet. These are the people who sell you a box and tell you it's a toy. These are the Madison Avenue PR folks. These are BS artists. They're con men. They're good at this stuff. Much better than the Democrats. Democrats want to make your life better. They want to actually work on policy. They worry about crossing T's, dotting I's, making sure everything's spelled correctly. Not Republicans. No. It's all about the flash. It's the show. It's the name. They spend more time on the name than the actual policy. The Student Loan Accountability Act. And what the Accountability Act means is, sorry, you generation who took out massive student loans because you didn't have really a choice if you wanted an education. You are screwed. No help for you. And no bankruptcy, no way out either. We at least give our corporate friends, like Donald Trump, the ability to file bankruptcy multiple times, but not you. These things are going to follow you to the grave. The Student Loan Accountability Act would prevent Biden from doing anything on debt forgiveness. Now, like I said, there's a part of me that goes, hey, I get that wiping out student loans would be something that would anger some. Kind of get it. But I believe there's got to be something in the realm of fairness that we can do it. And I've said my position from the very start was we buy up all the student loans, much like the Home Ownership Loan Corporation did back during the Depression. They bought up all the mortgages, very low interest rates. Over a long period of time, people paid them back. And once it was over, it was done. They closed it down. And the government made a ton of money off of it. A tiny bit of money off of it, not a ton. And people stayed in their homes. I think we could do the same thing with student loans. Say, hey, you took out $50,000 worth of student loans. You got to pay $50,000 back. But this idea that you're going to pay $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 back in fees and interest and all kinds of insanity that I'm hearing from people is just crazy. And it's wrong. For me, that's the answer. You took out $10,000 in loans, you got to pay that back. You took out $50,000, you got to pay it back. But the outrageous interest that the people are making huge money off of, that is crazy. And it's not fair. And this is where I think that you could get something done. And then you start working on how do we make sure that future generations aren't in that position. Because look, if we want an educated populace, if we want a populace of people who are going for advanced degrees and want to get the next generation of jobs that our economy desperately needs, you need to have pathways for people to get that education. Seems simple to me. But again, our Republican friends, they don't want any of it because they don't want to help you. They don't want to help me. They only want to help their rich buddies. And for all the rhetoric in the world, all the, oh, we care about you poor working stiffs, their votes matter. Their policies matter. And there's nothing for you or me. Love to hear your thoughts. 1-866-416-RICK. 1-866-416-7425. You got a thought, question, comment? Want to hear it? Is there a policy? I've been asking this question for 17 years now. Is there a policy Republicans have got that help working people and don't help the investor class, the wealthy? That's the catch. 1-866-416-RICK. Right back after this. Stick around. If you're a fan of the show, you've heard our Labor History in 2 segments, and you can hear them on the radio pretty much anywhere in the U.S. Labor history has never been more important than it is right now. So here's what we'd like you to do. Tell a teacher. Tell a teacher that labor history is important and that they can get digestible 2-minute lessons that are absolutely free. Free to download, free to use, free to share. Tell a teacher to go to thericksmithshow.com/history and help us put labor back where it belongs, in the classroom. You know, generations of American workers fought, bled, and died to build the American way of life. It's our job to keep their stories alive. Go tell a teacher that we're here to help them do just that. Find us at thericksmithshow.com/history today.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So the laptop is back. Yeah, Hunter Biden's laptops are back. Oh my goodness. There's laptops. Evidently, according to a new analysis by NBC News, between 2013 and 2018, Hunter Biden and his company brought in about $11 million via his role as an attorney and a board member with a Ukrainian firm, and some work with some Chinese business people. It's a whole bunch of shady stuff. And to be honest, don't really care. If there's crimes, he should go to jail like anybody else. Should be investigated, should go to jail. I don't know that this kind of crime is this kind of important, raises to the level of Senate hearings, unless, and this is where, again, my caveat comes in, unless there's a direct link between Hunter and Dad. If there is a direct quid pro quo, hey, Dad, can you do this so I can get paid? Unless there's that link, I don't care. I'll let the system work its way out. This is not an indictment of Joe Biden. Unless you can show me that Biden did something that made it possible for Hunter to do. Did Hunter Biden use his last name? Absolutely. Do they all? Oh my God, yes. They all do. In fact, what's interesting about today, in talking about emails, I love, but the emails. There's a story. There's a story. I wonder if this was on the laptop. There was a story about Tucker Carlson and Hunter Biden. Emails. Evidently, Tucker and his wife asked Hunter Biden to help get their son into college, into Georgetown. There's a trail of emails. Yeah, hey, can you help Bucky? I don't know who in the hell names their kid Bucky. But the guy wears a bow tie, so I'm not surprised. Can you help Bucky? I know you don't really know Bucky well, but can you help Bucky get into Georgetown? Didn't think that bad of him back then to use the vice president at the time's name to help Bucky get into Georgetown. And I'm going, I hate elites, and I hate the elites on so many levels. And look, this isn't new. people, kids of powerful people, cashing in on their last name. Because I was thinking about this Hunter Biden thing. It's not like Hunter Biden is in charge of foreign policy or, I don't know. It's not like, his wife is out, trying to bring, peace to the Middle East, being in charge of our Middle East policy or anything like that. I can seem to remember a president's kid's spouse being in charge of something like that who had no business doing it. It's not like he was selling off journalists to the Saudi government to be sawed up. It's not like that was happening. It's not like he got a $2 billion kickback from the Saudi government. Nothing like that. You don't hear Tucker or the right even mention, those little things. I got to wonder, I got to wonder. Now, if there's that kind of, if Hunter Biden helped facilitate the Saudis to chop up a journalist and got a nice $2 billion kickback because of it, then yeah, let's talk. But for all intent purposes, Hunter Biden's a screw up. He's struggling with addiction problems. He's a guy that they're kicking while he's down. They're bullying a poor guy who's really, he's got problems. Now, if he committed crimes, there's a system for that. But this, I'm not there, And this, again, is part and parcel of what the GOP does so well. They kick people while they're down, and they kick them hard because they can. And this is the spot that you just go, it's too much. It's just too much. Let's quick get Alice in here before we take a break. Alice, what's on your mind?
Well, did you ever notice that those laptops of Hunter Biden or whatever has to do with Hunter Biden or even Hillary always seems to come up when we're trying to deflect the attention away from, January 6th or something Trump did or somebody down there on the insurrection or, abortion.
Very convenient, isn't it?
I know. It'll be months. And then all of a sudden they're back in the spotlight again. Oh, well.
It's amazing how that happens. Thanks, Alice. Appreciate it. No, she's absolutely right. It's amazing, the diversion. Just like the baby formula thing. Look, is it a problem? Yeah. Here's what a functional government would have done. Here's what a functional Republican Party would have done. They wouldn't have had all this performative outrage. They wouldn't have held press conferences with pictures of baby formula on shelves in Panama. They would have put forth a piece of legislation with their name on it and said, hey, look at what we did. We moved legislation to solve a problem. But again, it's not about solving problems with them. It's about outrage. It's about getting their 15 seconds on fake news. It's about, riling the base and getting them pointing their anger at Biden and Democrats. And it's up to us to say, you know what, enough of this political theater. How about you do your freaking jobs? And your job is to legislate and to vote for things that are going to make lives better. The fact that only 12 Republicans voted to do anything to put baby formula on shelves is a massive indictment of this party. Just my thought. Love to hear yours. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you miss any of today's program or any of our programs, make sure you grab the podcasts. Quick break, right back after this. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1950. That was the day 31 dock workers were killed and hundreds more were injured in an explosion at the Raritan River Port in South Amboy, New Jersey. Workers were loading ammunition from freight trains onto ships. The freight's ultimate destination was Pakistan. Practically every structure in South Amboy suffered some form of serious or structural damage, with windows blown out everywhere and debris reported as far as 25 miles away. 5,800 more unexploded anti-personnel mines had been strewn about the port. Demolition experts had to be called in for removal. A subsequent fire at a nearby agricultural phosphorus plant complicated their work. The blast was caused by the detonation of 150 tons of military explosives and gelatin dynamite. The piers, equipment, and railroad cars were all demolished. Over a dozen nearby barges were either on fire or sank. Emergency operations went into effect and a state of emergency was declared. Key industries in the immediate area were seriously damaged, including the International Smelting and Refining Company, Pennsylvania Railroad maintenance shops, and the power plant for New Jersey Power and Light. According to a report by the National Board of Fire Underwriters and the Fire Insurance Rating Organization of New Jersey, packing of the mines and fuses by the Kilgore Company was not in accordance with Army standards, and labeling was confusing. The shipped mines were labeled as M1A1, though all parts but the detonator were identical to M1 mines, discontinued by the Army in 1942 for their apparent defective fuse, leading to accidental firing and explosions. The report refrained from drawing a certain cause or assigning blame. Instead, the underwriters offered a number of possible scenarios and recommendations for best practices to be implemented. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
When Supreme Court member Sam Alito's secret plan for canceling the constitutional right of women to end their pregnancies leaked out to the public, Republican politicos went ballistic. Over the leak, that is. The court's Republican Chief Justice John Roberts called the unauthorized disclosure, quote, an affront to the majesty of the Supremes. Likewise, Republican congressional leaders have furiously demanded to know who done it and why. Way beyond the political screeching and posturing, however, a Pennsylvania woman quietly wrote a letter to the New York Times that calmly posed a couple of honest, more fundamental questions. Why are Supreme Court votes and processes so hidden in the first place? And how did this grip on secrecy become so sacrosanct? After all, as important and enormously powerful as this tiny judicial body is, it's still a governmental agency doing public business that affects every American. So the legal work that the 9 members of this ultimate judicial authority do, including their internal machinations to reach such awesome decisions as nullifying fundamental human rights, ought to be transparent to all who will be affected. The ugly truth is that today's third branch of government has needlessly, dangerously, and rather ludicrously become a black-robed autocracy. Bear in mind that these 9 individuals are enrobed for life, make up their own rules of ethical conduct, operate almost entirely behind closed doors, and the bare majority of only 5 of them can arbitrarily overrule presidents, congresses, states, other courts, voters, and your own personal life decisions. This is Jim Hightower saying, and now comes a GOP majority of Supreme Justices determined to entrench corporate plutocracy, right-wing theocracy, and Republican sovereignty over all of us. That's why we must finally lift the medieval level of secrecy the partisan judges are using to shroud their actions.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So, I've been sort of vindicated, I think, a little bit. Because back when the Democrats threw Marjorie Trainwreck Green off of her committees, I said, I think it's a bad idea. And I took a lot of heat for it. I said, I think it's a bad idea that Democrats clean up the mess for Republicans. I think they should have to clean their own house. And you're like, no, we should do this. I go, no, what she did was, was wrong. It's deplorable. It should be the Republicans' problem. That albatross should be around their neck. It's not my job to clean up someone else's mess. Let them deal with it. Now I'm finally seeing someone in the Republican Party, this Representative Don Bacon from Nebraska, saying, maybe we should get rid of some of these, the troublemaker caucus. Maybe shut them the blank up so that we don't look like all goofballs. This is what I was saying. Keep Cawthorn, keep Lauren Boebert, keep the train wreck woman right out in front. Because my main point was, when she was on the education committee, anytime she would open her mouth, you'd go, see, we need more funding for education. Exhibit A. That simple. That simple. Anyway, here to share some more thoughts on this story and on a guy with a great name. I love the name Bacon. Yeah, I just do. I guess I love bacon. Here to share some thoughts on bacon, I've asked our good friend Sarah Burris to come talk with us. Sarah's a reporter over at Raw Story. Rawstory.com, their website if you want to check out her incredible work. Sarah, thanks for taking time for us.
Hello. Don't you know that in Nebraska, the name bacon just goes over really well? I don't know if that's a big hog state or not. But who doesn't love bacon, right? Vegetarians. That's really it.
But even then, the smell of bacon is great. And even if you're a vegetarian, I gotta think you like the smell of bacon. I don't know.
Do you know you could get bacon toothpaste? That's a thing.
Yeah, that you can get bacon flavored just about anything. Some of it's weird to me.
A little bit, lube, bacon flavored lube.
Yeah, okay. So that's where you go, right there, right there.
That was actually on an episode of Bones. I'm stealing that.
All right, on the episode of Bones. And is that where you put the bacon lube?
Well, they thought it was some sort of taste thing, and they ended up taking the whole tube and pouring it in their mouths, and then they read the label, and it was. So then they spent the rest of the episode trying to get the taste out of their mouth, and so he meets up with his wife at one point, and he kisses her, and she goes, "You've been eating bacon?"
Speaking of taste out of your mouth, Marjorie Trainwreck Green. Evidently, she's telling women that abortion won't make men love her.
Which is very interesting to me that she presumes that women are having abortions to get men to love them. And that she thinks that some dude who, doesn't want to be a father and is uninterested in, marrying his baby mama is somehow going to love somebody more because they have a kid. That doesn't seem to work with every possible indication that I've ever seen. But, what do I know? Things in Georgia might be very different. They might have a lot of shotgun weddings there.
Yeah, I'm not going into any of these stereotypes of Georgia. I mean, she is who she is, and I'm hoping I'm hoping Marcus Flowers wins the primary, and I'm hoping he electorally takes her out in November, and the good folks in Georgia get some actual representation, because she is I don't know what she's done other than prove Representative Bacon's point that she's just the troublemaker caucus. She doesn't have any real solutions. And I look at baby formula gate. She's out there complaining a lot. I don't see her doing anything to make it better.
Yeah, she voted against the bill that would have
of course
delivered.
She did.
Yeah, and so did all of the other Republicans. The thing that is crazy to me, and Representative Bacon, he's not even talking about Green. He's talking about Chip Roy and what's his name? The other guy.
Gozer?
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 No. There's another dude. Anyway, he's talking about two other troublemaker dudes. And they, basically have been calling for roll call votes, which doesn't seem like a big deal, except when you have 400,000 members that are on the floor who are, have to vote. And so you have all these people who have to show up at their desks and swipe the card. And when you have offices that are 2 blocks away and 4 floors up, you're in a meeting with your constituents. You got to run down the stairs, run across the block, up the stairs of Congress, into the chamber, swipe your card, and then go all the way back. And you're looking at that's at least 30 minutes, right? Maybe even more. And there are a lot of people who genuinely take into consideration their district and their constituent services. And I would assume that Mr. Bacon, given the fact that he's actually in a blue district, he's a Republican in a blue district, that's probably something he needs to focus on a lot.
Yeah, but the other guy that you were talking about is my congressman. I don't know how I forgot that. Scott Insurrectionist Perry here in central Pennsylvania. He what does he care about? He's in one of the safest districts in the country. Even if he's indicted, and I'm hoping he will be, he'll probably win from jail.
Oh, how many times? We haven't really had anybody who served from jail, have we?
No,
that would be nice.
But I have faith in my central Pennsylvanians that this could be the first time that our insurrectionist representative could be the first.
The question for you, is there a jail in that district? Because it may put him in a different congressional district. I mean, if he's not living in the district, then, because he's in jail.
No, I it's all crazy here. You got to learn the district, because this is Mastriano country. This is Benito Mastriano country. This is where, if you're an old white guy who looks like a thumb, we love you. And look, there are signs everywhere who they want this guy to be governor. And what's scary is there are some sane Republicans who are going, I hope this guy loses, because Pennsylvania could become crazy almost overnight, because what was once somewhat a sane Republican Party in this state has really been taken over by real, true fascist extremists.
And it's hard, because I remembered in 2016, folks like American Bridge talking about, we want Donald Trump to be the guy that we run against, because he's so extreme. He's so far out there that there's no way he could possibly win. And so when you play this game with Mastriano, I get a little nervous, because it's like, we tried this once before and we lost. So I would like to see, how the dude campaigns, but it seems like everybody already has been treating Mastriano like he's losing. Like everybody in the Republican Party is treating him like that. I don't know if that means that, Donald Trump is going to step in, and he didn't even endorse the guy till the week before the election.
Right. And this guy really wanted his endorsement, courted it heavily.
Yeah.
Did everything he could.
He's been on Trump team for years. So, and Trump wasn't jumping right to helping him. That's not a good sign.
I don't think he'll implode like Scott Wagner did in the last election. Mr. Golf Spikes, where he literally flipped out on the side of the road in front of a billboard, where he threatened the sitting governor that the sitting governor better get a face mask, because I'm going to come and beat you with golf spikes. You go, what the? But yeah, that was fun.
That dude, they have pills for that,
They do.
Not for the golf spikes, but so you don't start screaming on the side of the road with golf spikes.
But that was, that guy kind of lost his mind. I don't see this guy doing that, because he's got a throng of people who are behind him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think folks who are a little bit more wary about looking insane, they're a little bit better about covering up the insanity versus Madison Cawthorn, who just puts it all out there.
Yeah, I got to play the Scott Wagner clip. I love this.
Okay.
Well, Governor Wolf, let me tell you, between now and November 6th, you better put a catcher's mask on your face, because I'm going to stomp all over your face with golf spikes, because I'm going to win this for the state of Pennsylvania, and we're throwing you out of office, because you know what? I'm sick and tired of your negative ads.
You better have that face mask, because I'm going to stomp you with my golf spike. I love that.
You just carry that around on your phone, and then every time you're having a bad day, you just listen to that and start giggling.
Yeah.
Is that what that is?
Yeah, no, because he literally lost his mind during the campaign, because at that moment, the state wasn't as crazy as he was. I fear the Republican Party, because of the influence of Trump and really the hammering of they've internalized the victim complex that Trump brought them, that they really believe the election of 2020 was stolen from them. And Mastriano was one of the key cheerleaders. And they believe that this guy, once he's governor, he's going to right wrongs. They're not going to steal the next one. It's scary times.
Well, I think too, those are questions I would love to see in a debate where, because you're talking about Josh Shapiro is a really, really smart dude.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be a debate. I don't think Mastriano will debate.
Oh my gosh. That would be cool though, because then he could just, Shapiro could just be like, "What's up, Doug? Why are you so scared?"
Empty chair it?
Yeah, I would empty chair the heck out of that.
Now, what I find interesting is Trump is surprised that the person who who was the most Trumpy, Kathy Barnett, did well. And I've been saying, and I've taken some heat for it, that had she been an old white guy who looked like a thumb, like Mastriano, she would have won in a landslide like Mastriano did. But that she's a black woman, didn't do as well. Did well,
I think,
with no money, but didn't win in a landslide like she should have.
I think too, if she was a white dude, Trump would have endorsed her.
Absolutely.
And that's
because here's
the
the
thing.
thing. Here's the thing. Her supporters are out there saying the election's rigged. What's more Trumpian than that?
I know, that's my favorite part of this, that that she worked so hard to claim that the election was rigged was it 2020, and then she did it when she ran for Congress, right, in 2016, or was it 2018? Anyway, when she ran for Congress, she claimed it was rigged. When Donald Trump was running, she claimed it was rigged. So the fact that she came in third, I'm really shocked that she's not saying it's rigged. However, a lot of her supporters are. A lot of her supporters are demanding that that there be an investigation, that something sketchy is going on here. And what's funny to me is that now Trump is stepping in, and he sort of jumped on that bandwagon because he thinks Dr. Oz should have won in a landslide, and yet, but he's accusing his own party of having problems here. And so I feel like if I were Barnett, I'd just be all over that, being like, yeah, it was rigged, I should have won it. And
no, it's the mail-in vote. It's the mail-in vote. It's amazing how the Republicans have come around to accepting the mail-in ballot now. Wow, it's incredible. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show. We're here with Sarah Burris. She's a reporter over at Raw Story, rawstory.com, where you can check out her incredible work. Highly suggested. Now, I find it interesting. I find it interesting that there's kind of a rewrite of history going on. Mark Wayne, whatever his name is, from your state of Oklahoma, and now with this Elise Stefanik, they want to go back and expunge Trump's impeachment. Can you do that? I mean, can we go back and expunge Andrew Jackson? Go back, do that one? Can we expunge Clinton's?
Ironically, you cannot. And it's funny too, because I was looking around trying to figure out the answer to that. That was my question, was like, is this even possible? And so I started looking around what people are saying. And in 2020, folks were really pushing that idea out there because Trump suggested it. And so I wonder if, not for the second one, but for the first one. And so I wonder if, his supporters are behind something like that. And that's the reason that Mark Wayne, Gary Wayne has, adopted that as his, campaign thing, because he's running for U.S. Senate in Oklahoma. Like, is he hearing that from his people back home? I don't know.
I can't imagine. I can't imagine. I mean, Oklahoma's crazy enough, evidently, because your state is going to now, I guess, be the state that hates women the most, I guess. This is the way I'm reading this. I guess I should ask you what your thoughts on Oklahoma being the state that is going to have the most restrictive abortion law in the country. And as I understand it, and I don't know how they're going to figure this out, but the moment of conception, anything, I guess that's the moment that I don't know. Explain this. What have you done in Oklahoma?
So unfortunately, I clearly haven't been doing enough in Oklahoma, because it's getting worse and worse. I feel like they have decided that they want to take the idea of the Texas law and just be bigger than that. They want to try and be bigger than Texas. And so they took that Texas law, they applied it in Oklahoma, and gave the caveat that a fetus is alive at the moment of conception, at the moment of fertilization. So for anybody who has, say, an IUD as their form of birth control, an IUD prevents the fertilized eggs from attaching in the uterus and, growing. And so that would essentially be a medical device that would stop a pregnancy, that would abort a fertilized egg. So IUDs are going to be illegal. then there's the idea of IVF. So for women who want to have children, who desperately are fighting to have children, they basically harvest all your eggs and they fertilize them in a little petri dish and figure out which ones are viable and throw some of those in there. Sometimes some of them take, sometimes they don't. And so it ends up in a situation where they might have fertilized eggs sort of in a freezer in the, back out on the porch. Not really, but in a lab, right? You'll have a bunch of fertilized eggs in a fertility clinic. So does freezing them mean that they're being murdered? Like, how does that work? What does the law work like on that? If they throw them out because she got pregnant and she's like, I'm good, you can, toss the rest of them. Like, is that considered an abortion? So there are a lot of questions I have about this law and that weren't explained. They did put in caveats for life and health of the mother, and they did put in a caveat for rape, sexual assault of any kind, and incest, but only if they're reported to police, which if it's illegal to, in Oklahoma to basically get any kind of health care as a woman, then why are you going to show up at a police station and report that you've been attacked?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or there's going to be more reports of those kind of things going on, or who knows the chaos that you're causing. Now, I also heard that, and maybe this is just a Washington, D.C. thing, that embryos are fueling the energy supply in Washington, D.C. Are we burning embryos to turn the lights on? Is this what I'm hearing?
So I guess it was the UIL, the Unborn Something League. It's a really crazy fringe anti-choice group that had their president testify before Congress yesterday. And at one point, she started going into big time descriptions about ripping body parts out of a woman and all kinds of stuff that's like, that's not how that works. That is a little bit concerning that she doesn't know these things. But then she said that apparently in Washington, D.C., we are burning fetuses as a fuel source. And I don't know how much energy you get from a fetus. I'm not sure how you calculate that. There's not a lot of burning, that happens in DC. Like we already have like a big enough pollution problem because the city's so big and it's a huge metro area. So I'm just like, how does that work? How would that create that much energy? Yeah. But two, like what company? I want to know, like, was she under oath when she said this?
Yeah. It's the same thing. And I have people tell me that you could, when my wife and I were having our children, that on the drive to the hospital, we could have decided, which way we were going. So when the doctor was right before the head popped out, we could have decided, which way we going with this? Are we going to have it or are we going to get rid of it? Yeah.
Which is such a lie. That is so much of a lie. Like, and it really bothers me because there's so much out there that people keep lying about to create that level of emotion and to try and push people, to be anti-choice. And like, if you have to lie about all of this stuff, if you have to make up crazy science stuff just to get people to be on your side, maybe it really isn't your area of concern. Like, if you're going to be that crap crazy, then maybe you shouldn't really be on a public face of really anything. Because if I was the anti-choice movement, I'd be like, somebody get this woman off the stage.
Yeah, no, because
she is hurting your cause.
Look, I mean, there's some arguments that I might be persuaded on. If you had the right policies to move in a direction that we're going to make lives better. My problem with all of this is, the people who are the anti-abortion people, they haven't given alternatives. They haven't gone, hey, we're going to make sure that every kid gets the health care that they need. Every mother's going to get the prenatal care that they need. They're going to make sure that they get the education. Look, I grew up, poor. I grew up in a housing project. lots of those kids didn't get the basic necessities that they need. And I don't see any policies that are we're going to force women to have kids and then give them no help. I mean, this baby formula thing is a perfect example and has shown the heart and soul of the Republican Party. They literally said, we don't care if those kids down on the southern border die. Don't care at all. Which just exposed the hypocrisy of their entire, we love the children. We care about the fetus. Nonsense. You care about the power and control.
Well, not even that. They voted down the legislation that would have helped, basically cause more, like give more funding for these companies, because we have this massive company that basically rules the majority of formula in the country. So you've got 3 other companies that are much smaller, and so they have to ramp up production. That's why Biden sort of enforced the Defense Production Act and all of these different policies that have to be funded. Like, you can't just say, make more stuff. You have to actually help people figure out how that's going to work and what taxpayers are going to pay for to make this happen. And so Congress tries to pass this bill and no Republican votes for it. And I was like, you guys have spent the last week talking about this being the most important issue, the biggest deal in the world, and you've been screaming at Joe Biden, blaming him for this, when it's basically another corporate scam. And that's the reason that these people have skirted safety regulations just so they can do stock buybacks. That's basically what happened at Abbott.
Yep.
And so, they've been doing all of this, and then they vote against the bill. And you're like, what? Wait, what? Why?
Because it's not about getting things done. It's about performance. It's about political theater. It's about outrage. It's about feeding the minions the outrage candy that they need to keep them stupid, so that they don't actually realize that they're getting screwed over by the people that they're voting for. It's about keeping them all riled up and all bunched up in the panties and angry at those Democrats who, haven't done a really good job of messaging on this either.
They really haven't. I mean, they just sort of figured out that it was going on like a week ago, and they did the recall for the formula that was killing babies in March. So that sort of began the problem. And then whenever, there ended up being safety problems and everything, Abbott ended up being, having inspectors come in, and so it became this huge thing. And so and I'm shocked that I think the only reason that Republicans figured this out is, one of the mom blogs started talking about it, freaking out about it. And all of a sudden, then it was on Fox News. And once it was on Fox News, then every Republican was complaining about it. But when Democrats stepped up to actually solve the problem, to, start yelling at the FDA administrator saying, were you asleep at the wheel? What the hell was going on? Republicans were just nowhere to be found.
Well, they were to be found. They were in front of a camera. Rick Scott had pictures of baby formula in Panama. He had pictures of baby formula on shelves all across the world.
And what's interesting, too, is the reason that we can't import formula from other countries is because of Trump's new NAFTA bill that he passed. They outlawed that in Trump's bill.
And I'm actually okay with that. I believe in domestic production for domestic consumption. We should just be breaking up these 4 companies that oversee 90% of the production. We should be demanding that there's competition, something conservatives and Republicans used to believe in, but somehow, not so much now. No, we just need things to keep the masses all doped up on outrage, which is where we are. But Sarah, I appreciate the time, all the great work you do over at Raw Story. Keep it up. Look forward to having you back again real soon.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
You as well, our good friend Sarah Burris. Make sure you check out the work that she does there at Raw Story, rawstory.com, the website. Gonna take a quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
Today's State of the Climate Report is a dismal litany of humanity's failure to tackle climate disruption.
UN warns 4 key climate change indicators broke new records in 2021. Cutting air pollution from fossil fuels would save 50,000 lives a year, study finds. Plus,
forest officials are concerned that with the dry conditions, visitors may become trapped if a fire does break out.
National forests forced to close as wildfires rage.
All of that raging and more straight ahead. From BradBlog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
And you know what those liberals will do with their powerful permanent majority? Beg Joe Manchin for paid family leave. Then when he doesn't vote for it, say, oh, okay then, what if we fed coal directly to dolphins?
Yep, that'll do it. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, not a good sign for these wildfires this season.
No, it is not. Due to an outbreak of severe early season wildfires in New Mexico and southern Colorado, federal officials announced this week that the Santa Fe National Forest, as well as 2 other national forests, will close in the height of tourist season because the danger of a catastrophic fire is just too great. Globally, 4 key climate change indicators set new records in 2021. The United Nations Weather Agency announced on Wednesday greenhouse gas emissions, sea level rise, ocean heat, and ocean acidification, all critical climate indicators, reached new levels in 2021, all clear signs of humanity's impact on the planet. That's according to the UN World Meteorological Organization's annual State of the Global Climate Report out this week. The report warned that extreme weather disasters wreaked a heavy toll on human lives and cost hundreds of billions of dollars in economic losses last year. It confirmed that the past 7 years have been the hottest on record since the 1880s. Global sea levels reached a new record high, rising at double the previous rate. Ocean heat also hit a new record high. And because the oceans absorb about a quarter of humanity's rising carbon emissions, the report also found that oceans are now more acidic than they've been in at least 26,000 years, harming marine life.
That's a whole lot of not very good news.
United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres urged governments to move faster to end the use of polluting fossil fuels that are causing the climate crisis.
The global energy system is broken and bringing us ever closer to climate catastrophe. Fossil fuels are a dead end, environmentally and economically. The only sustainable future is a renewable one. The good news is that the lifeline is right in front of us. Renewable energy technologies such as wind and solar are readily available and in most cases cheaper than coal and other fossil fuels. If we act together, the renewable energy transformation can be the peace project of the 21st century.
It's that if we act together part that I'm kind of worried about.
Yeah. Another clear sign of humanity's impact on the planet, a new study by the Lancet Planetary Health Journal shows that pollution of all types continues to be the largest environmental health threat around the world. Air pollution, water pollution, and toxic chemical pollution were responsible for about 1 out of every 6 deaths globally between 2015 and 2019. The death toll attributed to dirty pollution has risen 55% since the year 2000, the study found. The vast majority of deaths from pollution were in developing countries.
On the upside, think of all those billionaires who are making billions and billions of dollars from it.
A different study finds that cutting air pollution from fossil fuels in the United States alone would save 50,000 lives every year. And cutting fossil fuel air pollution would also provide economic benefits, saving more than $600 billion every year in public health costs.
Yeah, but not for those billionaires.
And not for the 17 Republican state attorneys general who are now suing the Environmental Protection Agency over its decision to restore a waiver allowing California to set tougher tailpipe emission standards than the federal government. California's tailpipe emissions laws have improved mileage standards and air quality for residents nationwide. But some good news.
Thank you.
Michael Bloomberg, the billionaire former mayor of New York City, announced he is launching a $240 million new initiative to deploy clean energy in 10 developing countries to combat climate change, working with nonprofit organizations to develop plans with local and national governments.
Okay, I take back some of what I said about those billionaires, at least this one. at least in this one short moment.
In a statement, Bloomberg noted that more than 750 million people around the world lack access to electricity, saying, quote, "We have a unique opportunity to drive that energy source being renewable from the start, instead of going back again in another 30 years.
So there's that.
Are you tired of think tank approved corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
I gotta tell you, I'm still stuck on the, screaming and hollering and complaining and whining about gas prices, and then have Congress, to have the Republicans in Congress do nothing. It's one thing to have your cute little stickers. Oh, Joe Biden did this. It's one thing to hold your press conferences and say the Democrats caused the inflation. But to actually do nothing, that's the part I'm struck with. And the last couple of days have shown us that Republicans are void of ideas, are void of policy initiatives that are going to make workers' lives better. And look, very clear, they're not going to. And what we do know of their policy aims, the Rick Scott plan. Now remember, Rick Scott came on the scene with pictures of baby formula on shelves around the world, without a piece of legislation to get them on our shelves. That should tell you all you need to know. We need people who are going to be fighting for working class folks here in our backyard. That's why I'm happy to have Ashley Ehas to come talk with us. She's a combat veteran, former Apache helicopter pilot, and Democratic nominee for U.S. Congress in the 1st Congressional District in my state of Pennsylvania. Her website, ehasforcongress.com. We'll get links out on social media how you can take a look at that. Ashley, thanks for taking time for us.
Thank you so much for having me on tonight with you. This is an incredible privilege, and I am so grateful to be the nominee here in Pennsylvania's 1st District for the Democratic Party. Well,
congratulations. You got your work ahead of you, but this is where the work should be. I say that Democrats have got to be the party of the working class. You got to be the party of making lives better, and it should start with gas prices. Should start with Formula Gate. You look at our Republican friends, and boy, the performances have been great. Oscar award-winning stuff on fake news. Boy, they can get in front of a microphone and they can bring the outrage. But where's the policy? Where's the initiative to actually do something?
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And the Republican Party at large, especially the last few years, has been very good at blocking any initiatives that would help working class families. And here in Pennsylvania's 1st District, that is what we have, working class families. And my Republican opponent, Brian Fitzpatrick, likes to pretend that we don't. And in the last 24 hours, he has taken some astonishing votes. Most astonishingly, as you just mentioned, he voted against preventing oil and gas companies from gouging prices at the pump. So when we look at the issues that families are facing financially, we look to our leaders to make the right decisions. And Brian Fitzpatrick proves time and time again that he is out of touch with his district, and he will side with his partisan issues and partisan party over families.
Yeah, I mean, look, I want people who are going to stand up for working people. The wealth class has enough lobbyists. They've got enough money. They got enough power to be taken care of. It's those people who are going to stand up to make sure that working families who are struggling in this moment get the support and the help that they need to make it through the next day, the next week, to make sure that their kids get the education that they need, the health care that they need. We can have policy fights and arguments, but at the end of the day, it's got to be, how are we going to push initiatives? And yet I look at someone like Fitzpatrick, who's been pushed to me as a solid labor guy, a good one, a good Republican, which at this point I'm not seeing, because the votes are what matter to me. He seems like a nice guy. I've met him a couple of times, but the votes are what matter to me.
Right, and that's exactly what we need to examine when we look at Brian Fitzpatrick's record. As you mentioned at the top of the intro, I'm a combat veteran. I served nearly 13 years in the military, and I was an attack helicopter pilot. And when I was overseas, getting into the cockpit of that aircraft, I didn't think a lot about the types of Americans that I was defending, whether they were Democrat, Republican. I was thinking of Americans. And that is exactly how I feel when I look at the way we need to hold our leaders accountable who are now in elected positions. And Brian Fitzpatrick votes only how the Republicans want him to vote. He does not vote for all Americans. He does not vote for all family members in our district, all the voters in our district. He does not represent every single person that's here. He votes how he needs to in order to line his pockets with money or appease McCarthy and hold whatever position he might have in the party. And that's it. He is leaving many, many members of our community behind and is happily doing so. And so fundamentally, he is out of touch with this district as we move forward. And that's why it's time for change here. As a young woman who has served her country, I have real skin in the game here. I have nearly $70,000 in student loan debt. I just bought my first home, but only because of the VA loan. So I understand how hard it is to get established right now. We have so many people here who are just trying to live paycheck to paycheck in PA1, and they are struggling. And Brian Fitzpatrick is leaving them behind, which is exactly why I am running for office, to get next generation leadership in the seat who will vote with conscience and courage when it comes to representing this community.
Let's talk about that for a second. Student loan debt. I hear that from young people, all the time. I've got a young relative who's $100,000 in debt. I have no idea how she's going to be able to pay that back, especially when you look at some of the terms, 9% interest on one, 11% on another. It's crazy. And yet you look at the Republicans in Senate that they're moving a piece of legislation called, and I love this, the Student Loan Accountability Act, which the Accountability Act is to make sure that Biden and Democrats can do nothing to help ease that burden on a generation who has been screwed over by a system that, a lot of these people helped create, that, your generation has been saddled with. A true problem for the working class. They've basically come out and said, we're doing nothing. You're screwed. What's the way forward in this? What do you do to move this forward in a way that you think is fair?
Great question. And I always start the answer to this question by acknowledging that student loan debt doesn't just affect people in my generation or those younger than me. As I have talked with voters in this community, it's an issue that affects all generations, because there are some older than me who either still have loans or co-signed a loan for their grandkids. And so this is a systemic issue that affects all families. And as we look forward, fundamentally, the system needs to be fixed. I think right now, aside from the 0% interest as loans are delayed, you can get a student loan, you can get a home for lower interest rates than you can a student loan. That right there tells me the system is broken, and the federal government can control that for federally backed loans. And then we also need to look at the costs of institutions. We need to provide real incentives for schools to lower their costs, because right now you have young people taking out massive student loans at an age where they're probably not really sure what they're going to get for it. And that is a tremendous burden that follows them for the rest of their lives. Yeah. And I think we also need to take advantage of the incredible institutions we have here in Pennsylvania, not only four-year traditional institutions, but also trade and technical schools, and make sure we provide good pathways and good incentives for students to go to those other schools. So that way we can build out our economy and create a really diverse group of great workers, especially when we look to making sure our unions are taken care of.
Yeah, and promote union apprenticeship programs and bring trades back into the schools. There's so much we can be doing. My idea in the beginning of this, right from the start when we were talking about this, is I think the federal government should be buying up all the student loans and administering these at a low interest rate so people pay back what they borrowed. So there's a sense of fairness. If you borrowed $50,000, you pay $50,000 back, with maybe at a 0.5% interest or whatever the administration cost would be, so that there is a sense of you borrowed it, you paid it back. But this idea that you're paying 9, 10, 11%, and then all the penalties and all the fees and all the craziness they throw on top of it, just so that the Education Incorporated can make more money off the backs of people who just wanted to maybe have a shot at living a middle-class lifestyle, is patently unfair. So something has to be done. At least that's my thought. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show here with Ashley Ehas. She is running for Congress in the 1st Congressional District. Her website, ehasforcongress.com. We'll get links out on social media how you can check that out. So let's move into a couple of different areas, because again, I'm a union guy. I'm a firm believer in people's rights to join and form unions, collectively bargain for better wages, hours, conditions. As we've been watching Amazon, we've been watching Starbucks, Apple now. There's a bunch of organizing going on, but it's too much. It's too difficult. The pendulum has swung way too far to the side of employers. Is there something that you view as a congressperson that you could do that would maybe help? Are you a supporter of the PRO Act? What are your thoughts?
Yes, I think when we look at working class families, especially union members, getting established here and having incredible pathways forward, I think we need to look at the family holistically as well and create incentives for unions to have the power versus corporations. But when I talk the power imbalance between corporations and unions, I also always want to bring unions back to the families that make them up. And when I look at Pennsylvania's 1st District, we have some of the highest cost of living across the Commonwealth, and that's with Brian Fitzpatrick in this seat. So he has not done anything to lower the cost of living when it comes to these families. So when we're looking at making sure unions have the power to negotiate on behalf of workers, whether it's for healthcare, safety in the workplace, we also need to make sure families are well taken care of, even outside the workplace, so that way they can focus all their energy to organizing and working together to actually advocate for better benefits. So when I say all that, we look at things like paid family leave. Brian Fitzpatrick voted against that. So having that codified at the federal level would absolutely help those who are bargaining for better conditions at work. When we look at reducing the cost of healthcare, if that is done so at the federal level, that gives so much more strength and power to those who are bargaining through the unions for better conditions at work. So when I look at the way we take care of our unions, I also look at the way we holistically take care of families, because those are one and the same to me.
Now, as a young woman, and look, me as an old white guy who has 2 daughters, the abortion issue is front and center, especially after we've seen the leaked memo from our Supreme Court. This clearly has to be an issue that's important to you. I'm curious how you see things legislatively and how you see things, in society going forward.
Thank you for asking that question. And I actually want to link it back to the one that you asked before, which is how do we give the balance to working class families versus these large corporations? And when we look at the devastating impact that if Roe is overturned this summer, as that draft intends, it will devastate at 50% of the population with those who can bear children, but also their families. And if that is overturned, it not only undoes the sanctity of the conversation between a woman and her doctor, but it also completely upends their ability to family plan. Or if a woman is looking to get back into the workplace, she may not be able to now if Roe is overturned. So we need to look at the economic implications of this overturn as well. In my district, the largest demographic that lives at or below the poverty line are women aged 25 to 34. So when we look at the impact on the economy, the impact on just their ability to provide for their families that they statistically probably already have, if their right to choose is gone, we devastate that. We devastate the ability for women to participate in the economy and society. So all of these issues touch each other. And something that is also deeply concerning with the draft as it was written is there is a framework built there that wants to undo nearly 70 years of civil rights legislation in this country. So they will not stop with just Roe. They will go after contraceptives next. The ability to have marriage between gay couples. These are things that make America amazing. And they want to undo the basic frameworks of all the progress we've made in the last 70 years.
Yeah, as I say, they want to undo the 20th century and return us to the good old days of the 80s and 90s and not the 1980s and 90s. So last question I've got for you. If you're making that elevator pitch, why Ashley Ehas? Why you? Why now?
Thank you. So we need change in Pennsylvania's 1st, full stop. Brian Fitzpatrick is out of touch and out of line with this district. He will not vote with confidence or with any courage for this community. And we need someone who is a public servant and not a politician, and someone with skin in the game. I will keep saying it. There are so many issues on the table, many of which we discussed tonight, that I either am experiencing now as a 33-year-old woman who has served this country, or someone in my family has, or I know someone in this community who are dealing with things that the current elected official is not solving for them. So I am here to bring very real change to this community and make sure our basic rights, like voting rights, reproductive rights, are taken care of. I will protect our democracy, and I will make sure that working class families here in the community can afford homes, health care, and be able to just take care of their families. And that's incredibly important.
How can people help, other than go to the website, ehasforcongress.com, how can people help the campaign? How can people help you out across the country?
Thank you so much for that. So we are currently building a massive coalition here in southeastern Pennsylvania, and I'm so proud of the grassroots organization that we have in the community. So please go to my website. You can sign up to volunteer. We are knocking doors every weekend. We're getting people out there with literature. We're going to events and just really talking about the issues with voters. And that is a really great way to get engaged. And even if you don't live here in the community, you can follow me on social media, help spread the message, and get that out even beyond southeastern Pennsylvania.
Good stuff. Ashley, I wish you the best. I hope you'll come back and talk to us again real soon.
Thank you so much. This was lovely. I appreciate it.
Anytime. Good stuff. Again, if you want to check out the website, ehasforcongress.com, we'll get links out on social media, how you can take a look at that. I highly suggest it. Let's take a quick break. Right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk. If you're a fan of the show, you've heard our labor history in 2 segments, and you can hear them on the radio pretty much anywhere in the U.S. Labor history has never been more important than it is right now. So here's what we'd like you to do. Tell a teacher. Tell a teacher that labor history is important and that they can get digestible 2-minute lessons that are absolutely free. Free to download, free to use, free to share. Tell a teacher to go to thericksmithshow.com/history and help us put labor back where it belongs, in the classroom. You know, generations of American workers fought, bled, and died to build the American way of life. It's our job to keep their stories alive. Go tell a teacher that we're here to help them do just that. Find us at thericksmithshow.com/history today.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
Well, I like her. She seems great. Again, the website ehasforcongress.com. If you want to check out her website and the platform, I like the idea. That the whole wraparound, helping workers, do better in the workplace, but also the community stuff. I think it's really important. I got an email from Randy, who says, I think your news coverage of baby formula shortage may have missed an important point. For the past few decades, Congress has approved of the so-called urge to merge approach for corporations to point where the big corporations gobble up the smaller corporations until there are only 3 or 4 huge corporations producing a single product. So when one of those corporations is disabled for some reason, there is only 3/4 of the supply left. No, Randy, I think I've been talking about that quite extensively. I think consolidation has been something of I may be mistaken, but I think that's been my point from the very beginning. Mass consolidation has been our problem in all of our inflation problems at this moment. The monopolies that we've allowed to spring up, in our food supply, in transportation, in a lot of areas. The big A company, I think that's a big part of it as well, that we're allowing these companies to get so large that they're almost ungovernable. And it's how they like it. They like the power and control that that size gives them, because they can, well, they can run roughshod over government, because they know government is the only way that they can be held accountable. And this is why Republicans have done their foolhardy best to destroy the only body that can hold corporate America accountable. That's the beauty of what they've done. That's the mastery of government's the problem, not the solution. Because then the solution has to be corporate America. Now, they want you to believe that you're the answer. And this is where I get into this, and it's a philosophical argument. Look, I'm fearful of government as much as anyone, but I believe in government of, for, and by we, the people, over corporations of the board of directors. That's the simple reality. For a lot of the big decisions, we don't get input. And that's one of these reality moments that we have to come around to. I want representatives to have to come to me every 2, 4, 6 years and make their case of why we should continue to support them, why they should be the ones that we vote for. You don't get that in corporate America. You don't get the CEO going, hey, vote for us because we've done this to make your life better. No, they don't do that. It's an incestuous pool of robber barons and oligarchs. For instance, I had a listener, today, email me and going, hey, did you see Elon Musk's going to vote for Republicans now? What do you think of that? Can you comment on that? And I'm going, yeah, I'll comment on it, but I'll comment it on Twitter, because it would be an expletive-laden comment here that the FCC would not like. The fact that we look to robber barons, our modern-day robber barons, for whatever the blank that they think, I don't care what Elon Musk thinks. Elon Musk is part of the problem. Bezos is part of the problem. They are the smart people. Oh, they're smart people. They've made themselves very wealthy. They've manipulated a system where they've benefited. But Rick, they've created jobs. Yeah, they've figured out how to make $10 off of paying you $4. That's pretty smart. I give them credit for being able to do that. But am I going to look to them to solve society's problems when I know that their intention is to make themselves wealthier at my expense and yours? No, of course not. Now, do they have some good ideas? Sometimes, sure. Are those ideas to benefit the greater good? I'm a little questioning of that. This whole space exploration thing, let's see whose phallic rocket can get to space first. I think it's a little bit of phallic waving, but I also think it's who can get to the asteroids to get the minerals first. Who can figure out how to get transit back and forth to be the first trillionaire? But we can't talk about that because they're benevolent. There are benevolent dictators. But remember, a benevolent dictator is still a dictator. You still don't get a voice. A benevolent fascist is still a fascist. And we better wake up to that. Our government, ours, still in this moment, while we still have the ability to vote, is still supposed to be responsive to us. The problem is there's a political party who believes that it doesn't matter because their base is so addicted to the outrage candy. All they got to do is just throw it out there. Baby formula. And they lose their minds. No solutions, no ideas how to fix the problem, just point. And there's instant outrage, instant anger. You can't even point out the fact that Randy's right. Mass consolidation has done this. The big fish has been allowed to eat all of the little fishes until what? Until what? We're dependent on the big fish and their benevolence. That's the problem. Love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you miss any of today's program or any of our shows, make sure you download the podcast, subscribe, never miss a moment. Make sure it's always there. Make sure you leave a comment. Love to hear that. Also, a 5-star rating wouldn't be bad. I like that as well. Share it with your friends. Again, if you've got thoughts, questions, comments, I'd love to hear it. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. I do prefer the angry ones. Those go to the top. Quick break. Right back. Stick around.
I'm Rick.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1989. That was the day that black author and Marxist theorist C.L.R. James passed away. James was born in Trinidad, at the time a Caribbean colony that was part of the British Empire. His father was a school teacher. James became a leading intellectual on the subject of black liberation. His most famous work, The Black Jacobins, tells the story of the 1791 Haitian Revolution, when enslaved black Haitians successfully overthrew French colonial rule. James was a frequent contributor to Labor Action, a Marxist journal produced in New York from 1940 to 1958. He wrote about the struggles of black workers. He often penned fiery language. For example, in 1941, James wrote an article imploring black workers not to cross the picket line during a strike against the Ford Motor Company in Detroit. Ford had a reputation of hiring black workers at a time when many employers discriminated in their employment practices. But James warned his readers that the Ford Company was no friend to the worker and that the company was attempting to use race to keep its workforce divided. James wrote, quote, "Ford is one of the most dangerous enemies of labor who exist in this country. This enemy of society has been laying a train of race hatred in Detroit and is now about to touch it off. The organized working class movement and the Negroes will have to fight hard and long to check and frustrate and defeat this sinister plot. This will be no easy fight." In other articles, James also used his pen to call out labor unions for not including black workers and to call for the unification of black and white workers in their struggle. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
When Supreme Court member Sam Alito's secret plan for canceling the constitutional right of women to end their pregnancies leaked out to the public, Republican politicos went ballistic. Over the leak, that is. The court's Republican Chief Justice John Roberts called the unauthorized disclosure, quote, "an affront to the majesty of the Supremes." Likewise, Republican congressional leaders have furiously demanded to know who done it and why. Way beyond the political screeching and posturing, however, a Pennsylvania woman quietly wrote a letter to the New York Times that calmly posed a couple of honest, more fundamental questions. Why are Supreme Court votes and processes so hidden in the first place? And how did this grip on secrecy become so sacrosanct? After all, as important and enormously powerful as this tiny judicial body is, it's still a governmental agency doing public business that affects every American. So the legal work that the 9 members of this ultimate judicial authority do, including their internal machinations to reach such awesome decisions as nullifying fundamental human rights, ought to be transparent to all who will be affected. The ugly truth is that today's third branch of government has needlessly, dangerously, and rather ludicrously become a black-robed autocracy. Bear in mind that these 9 individuals are enrobed for life, make up their own rules of ethical conduct, operate almost entirely behind closed doors, and the bare majority of only 5 of them can arbitrarily overrule presidents, congresses, states, other courts, voters, and your own personal life decisions. This is Jim Hightower saying, and now comes a GOP majority of Supreme Justices determined to entrench corporate plutocracy, right-wing theocracy, and Republican sovereignty over all of us. That's why we must finally lift the medieval level of secrecy the partisan judges are using to shroud their actions.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So it's only been a couple of days since Madison Cawthorn found out he's going to be out of a job, and he's already lost his mind completely. Look, I'm worried about this kid. Honestly, all partisanship aside, I think he's losing his flipping mind. And I said originally, think he needs an intervention. Think an intervention most certainly needs to happen now, because he went on Instagram. And, look, you're going to have a little complaining, a little whining. The establishment turned their guns on me. The uniparty's out to defeat America. The kind of nonsense rhetoric. But then he goes, interesting kind of a little turn. He says that he's now on a mission. He's on a mission to expose those who say one thing and yet legislate and work towards another self-profiting globalist goal. This is different. This is now a little different. He says the time for genteel politics, as usual, has come to an end. It's time for the rise of a new right. It's time, here it comes, for Dark MAGA. Time for Dark MAGA! Dark MAGA must now take command. We have an enemy to defeat, but we'll never truly be able to defeat them until we defeat the cowardly and weak members of our own party. Their days are numbered. We are coming. Who's we? You got trounced. Everybody kind of said, dummy, you did dumb stuff. Grow the blankety blank up. Again, people around him, intervention time. And look, Madison, it's okay. You can come out, do whatever you got to do. Get some help. There are people here for you. If you need help, I'm here for you. This kind of crazy. But this is is Dark MAGA a thing? Yeah, maybe so. I'm here to share some thoughts on maybe where things are going. I've asked our good friend Tim Hogan to come share some thoughts on Tuesday's primary and, what's coming. Tim is the executive editor over at Heartland Signal, heartlandsignal.com, the website. They are our radio partners over at WCPT AM 820 in Chicago. Tim, thanks for taking time for us.
Great to be here.
So Dark MAGA is coming. Be prepared.
I have no idea what that is, and that is quite a fiery list of future commands for the movement to give after you are an incumbent and you lose your own party's primary. So I don't know how you can talk from such a position of strength, but Adam Kinzinger said today that it's probably better for the GOP themselves that Madison Cawthorn lost that race.
Yeah, now, honestly, I wanted him to stay. I thought he was a good sideshow. I thought he was somebody that, was the guy who wasn't smart enough not to say the quiet things silently. He was the guy who was shouting them out loud. Dumb stuff like this, because I do believe there's a part of the MAGA movement that wants civil war. They want to be able to come out and be completely outwardly screaming racist, homophobic, misogynistic nonsense at the top of their lungs in the middle of the street and doing it, on social media and everywhere they can and being very proud of it.
Well, I think what the warning from Madison Cawthorn is, if you are Lauren Boebert or a Marjorie Taylor Greene, what is the point at which the establishment GOP says, we've had enough, or some operation is going to go into effect where we learn things? There's videos that come out before a primary. I don't know. I don't know if Madison Cawthorn is a unique example here. It's hard to say, well, Marjorie Taylor Greene hasn't gone far enough, but if she goes a little further, we're really going to hold her accountable in our part. I don't know what that would look like. I think she's crossed every line. But I think there is an aspect of this that should, be a little fearful for those more fringy members of the Republican Party.
Yeah, but this frame of Dark MAGA, I was thinking about this. I'm sitting there going, how much darker can it get? I mean, how much worse can this get? You've got Ron Johnson, and look this week the great replacement theory with the shooting, and this is not new. You've got the right, in fact, today I was talking with my son. His teacher gave him a deck of playing cards from 2005 that had a whole bunch of political people on them. It's a great set of cards of all of the politicians from back then with cute little slogans and caricature drawings. It's fabulous. But we came to Pat Buchanan, and I go, Pat Buchanan was kind of the guy that led the Republican Party down this path, because the joke back in '92 was his speeches were better in the original German. This was kind of the Nazi wing of the GOP, coming out little dog whistle, little fringy kind of, so they could put them down. But it was kind of the beginning of making it okay. Now it's bullhorn, not even dog whistle. They want to be in the middle of the street with PA systems screaming at the top of their lungs.
Well, and it's, for Ron Johnson, he was chased by an AP reporter, asked about some of the language that he's used previously and how it is, subtler version of a great replacement theory type language. And he said, I have no idea what that is. I don't even know what you're talking about. There's an article in the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel today where they had the Anti-Defamation League comb through some of the clips where Senator Johnson is giving voice to this type of thought process, which is essentially Democrats run a country with open borders in order to allow immigrants in to replace the white population. And that is how we're going to lose our electoral power. That's, the version of how Ron Johnson talks about it. And, they said it's a subtle version of that. It is a subtle version of the great replacement theory. And, we did some digging on our own, and it's not like there's a shortage of clips of Ron Johnson talking about this. I mean, it took us maybe 10 minutes to find one from August of this year of him talking to Wendy Bell saying, well, what else could it be that there's this open border policy? I mean, of course it is just the Democrats wanting to hold on to their electoral power. I do think it is, for everyone who on the Republican side wants to talk about open borders, I do think there's a good standing challenge, which is you should take all of your identifying documents, bring them with you, cross the border to Mexico, and then while you're there, just light them all on fire and see if you can get back into the country, because theoretically there's an open border. It shouldn't be a problem. I don't think they'd be able to do it. But yeah, that type of language coming from Ron Johnson for a very long time.
Yeah, and clearly, when that theory, plays out, and I was talking to a guy yesterday who said, clearly Republicans don't quite understand how Florida is a Republican state. Because of Cuba. I mean, all of the immigrants that came from Cuba are reliable Republican votes. If you have ideas, if you have things that voters want to vote for, they tend to vote for you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, you could get back to talking about actual policy, but the problem for Ron Johnson there is he's reprehensible on every front there too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show here with Tim Hogan. Tim is the executive editor over at Heartland Signal, heartlandsignal.com, their website. Make sure you check that out. They are our radio partners over at WCPT AM 820 in Chicago. Make sure you're tuning in there. And for our listeners there, thanks so much. If you miss any of our program, make sure you grab the podcast. Always there, always available. So let's talk dark MAGA a little bit as well, because Pennsylvania, my state, potentially could have a Nazi as governor. I don't know how else to put this. I've been calling him Benito Mastriano for a very long time, because I see Senator Doug Mastriano as someone who is extremely dangerous. One of the guys who led bus trips down to the January 6th insurrection, someone who went down with the stated explicit goal to stop the certification of the election. This guy to me is dangerous and has come out and said he's not moving to the center. He's sticking straight to the dark MAGA path. This is dangerous stuff to me. I'm curious your thoughts.
Well, really, really dangerous, and don't need to be told, but this happening in states that are swing states for 2024 is also extremely dangerous. What happens if he finds a way to not certify election results? About 80 days ago, we started hearing him say, "I've already picked my Secretary of State. I know who it's going to be. It's someone who's traveling the country, learning about voting procedures. They're one of the best." He hasn't told voters who it is, and he hasn't really been pressed to explain who that is. That person's going to be in charge of the election. So it's appointed by the governor in your state, and it's shocking.
Yeah, we might not get the vote, but we might all get pillows.
Are you alluding to the fact that it's Mike Lindell? I mean, like, if it's Mike Lindell, I don't know, man. That's a whole new level of wild.
Because that's where my mind goes. That's how far down the fascist road I think this guy is willing to take us. So I'm putting that out there. I believe if he wins, Mike Lindell will be Secretary of State.
Wow. Okay, on the record here first. I'm not going to be able to stop thinking about that now until he tells us.
No, but this is, again, look, I don't use that F word lightly. Look, this is the melding of government and corporate interests. This is an authoritarian type person, someone who wouldn't mind using military force against citizens. This is much more than just the kind of, inflammatory word that gets people's attention. No, I mean, really functionally, this is who I believe this guy is and the policies that he will bring. He will make, reproductive rights non-existent in this state. We know abortion bans, the one passed in Oklahoma here today, that will be, teenage boys, get ready. Mastriano's coming for you. Because if now a fertilized egg is, if that's now to be protected, Monty Python's "Every Sperm is Sacred" is coming for you next. I mean, this is how far down the rabbit hole I believe this guy will take us.
Well, there were, Josh Shapiro, Attorney General Josh Shapiro, who won on the Democratic side, is now the Democratic nominee. This is the opponent that he wanted to draw. They were basically running ads that were subtly saying, this is the Trump guy who's in the gubernatorial race on the GOP side. And that's always a bet that you're kind of hedging, because that might be the opponent that you can beat, but that is also the opponent that you must beat, right? The stakes are even higher to keep someone like Doug Mastriano out of power.
No, and I like Josh. Spent a little time with him on Monday. Fortunately, I did not get his COVID, so I was very happy about that.
Good.
Went and took the test yesterday. Very happy I did not get his COVID. So thanks for that. But I will vote for him because I think he's been a great attorney general. He has been out there fighting for workers' rights. In fact, took on one of the biggest construction companies in the country to fight against misclassification and wage theft. For me, that is a huge feather in his cap that every worker should know about in this state. Now let's move over to the senatorial side here in Pennsylvania. John Fetterman took the Democratic side handily. And look, I think everyone knew that was coming. I'm a believer in you stand on solid working class values. You don't shy away from it. You stand for something. And not that Connor Lamb didn't, but I saw Connor Lamb as more middle of the road kind of centrist Democrat that I think Democratic voters are tired of. I saw John Fetterman as someone who's going to fight for something, someone who, if there's a fight that breaks out, might be a guy who's going to ball up his digits and get in the mix with you, not offer to hold your coat.
Yeah. I mean, it was surprising, I think, in the sense that it was uneventful, if that's a thing that can be true, that we saw this for weeks now, that Fetterman had been pulling away in polling that had come out. And yeah, I think there is something about him. My dad texted me as soon as he was elected, and my dad comes from a small rural town in northern Minnesota, 500 people, and he said, just donated to the Fetterman's campaign. He has to win. I think he'd do well in Bewabic, Minnesota, the town of 500 up there. And I think that's true. And I think someone like him being able to connect with voters in rural areas and people to sort of see him as an authentic, politician. It's sort of an oxymoron there. But he carries himself in a way that I think people look at him and see him as real.
No, I mean, because he is. Look, I've known him for a lot of years. We've had him on the program, countless numbers of times over the years, from the time when he was mayor of Braddock, one of the poorest cities in this state, all the way through his run for Senate, and his run for lieutenant governor. He's an authentic. He is who you see, and I wish him the best health-wise. I know he had a little heart thing. They're getting that under control. I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to make a great senator. Now on the Republican side, still don't know. Is it going to be Dr. Quack? Is it going to be the businessman who's been painted as the China businessman? We'll find out. I still seem to think had Kathy Barnett been a bald old white guy who looked like a thumb, I think she would have ran away with it. But that's just my thoughts. I'm curious yours.
Well, I think regardless of what happens, if we don't get a follow-up press conference at Four Seasons Soda Landscaping from either Dr. Oz or David McCormick, I'm going to be really disappointed, because we're primed for it. Okay, 2022, we got to do it again. But it's just razor thin, right? And I think it's a little bit of a test of the power of Trump's endorsement. I don't want to like confuse that conversation. I think everybody is running as Trump, right? Like there's for the most part, all of these candidates, Dave McCormick, Kathy Barnett, Dr. Oz, run as Trump, and then one of them, the same what we saw in Ohio, gets the endorsement and gives them a little bit of rocket fuel in the polls. But not sure it's going to be enough for Dr. Oz. We'll see. And we have a bunch of mail-in votes to count that have favored McCormick leading up till now, but he's holding, as of this point, around a 1,200 vote advantage. Ballots keep trickling in. McCormick is eating away at it just a little bit, but I don't know. It could flip. It could just stay very ugly, and then of course it's within that automatic recount of 0.5%. So unless unless the loser declines and specifically says, I don't want that recount to happen, then this could be dragged out even further.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the other two to blame Tom Wolf, for the governor of Pennsylvania, for cheating. I'm waiting for it. It's all rigged. I'm waiting for the rigged. That's what I'm waiting for. And finally, let's go to Minnesota. What's going on with the GOP convention there?
They just picked some of their candidates. So Scott Jensen, the doctor who has been flagged for multiple COVID misinformation problems online, who once said that he was happy that Vladimir Putin and Russian television were picking up on what he was saying about COVID, got the nomination, of course. He also, and his running mate, Matt Burke, he's going to be the lieutenant governor on the GOP side on the slate. We watched some video of him at a anti-abortion event in the early 2000s, where he says, and his line hasn't really changed, that abortion is not going to help a rape victim heal, so they can't do it. They shouldn't have an abortion. And so we'll see how that plays out. But it's Minnesota. It's a gubernatorial race. It's going to be very interesting. There is an independent candidate there running with the Forward Party backing, so backing from Andrew Yang, even though that person, Corey Hepola, doesn't agree with UBI, which I'm like, did you guys appropriately vet this person before you endorsed him?
No.
So it's going to be an interesting race. And, Governor Tim Walz is doing a good job in the state. Unemployment rate there, 2.2% came out today. And, they have a big, $9 billion budget surplus. But we'll see. We'll see what happens in that race.
Going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But again, I'm hoping people get energized, get out to vote, and maybe we'll turn back some of the crazy, especially in my state, because Dark MAGA is here. Dark MAGA. Maybe we're going to start. Will these be brown shirts this time? Oh, no, we can't. We've already done that. Never mind. Sorry, already done that. But Tim, I appreciate the time. As always, great stuff, my friend.
Thanks, Rick.
Good stuff. Tim Hogan, executive editor there at Heartland Signal. HeartlandSignal.com, their website. Check out the work that they do there. Gonna take a quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. If you've missed any of our program, make sure you grab the podcast. Never miss a moment. Make sure you subscribe. This way I don't have to keep reminding you. It's always going to be there. But if you need the reminder, go to your favorite podcast sites and grab it. Quick break. Right back. Think tank approved corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute. Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Check out the website, thericksmithshow.com. I'm thinking about the Dark MAGA thing. I can't get that out of my head. It's just been banging around the whole time going, is this the new, is this the how they shed Trump? Because Trump's about Trump. It's not really about, civil war. It's not about it's not about all the other stuff that the underground wants. the world that Cawthorn, has been toying with. And now that he's been shunned by the world that he wants to be in, will he go full dive into the sheets? I mean, is this the future? I mean, this is a guy who, sadly, and I feel for him. On a certain level, you go, wow, this is what privilege looks like. There's some problems there. And this is my struggle with where we are as a society. That you get these people who feel entitled. He lost an election because he was a crummy congressman. He didn't do what you're supposed to do as a representative, and that is represent your district. In fact, he kind of jumped back and forth going, I don't know which district I want. And then was just viewed in every light wrong. And look, it wasn't even the Democratic opponent that brought this out. It was his own party going, look, you're making us look bad. Your antics are bad for all of us. Which is why I go back to Marjorie Taylor Greene. When the Democrats decided that she shouldn't be on those committees. Because look, what she did was reprehensible. But that's not their job. In my view, it wasn't their job to right that wrong. It was the Republicans' job to clean their own house. Like they did with Madison Cawthorn. Now he's going to turn on them. And it's going to be interesting to watch how he turns on them and what they do to him. And that's okay. This whole MAGA thing, this has got to go away at some point in the near future. And look, I'm hoping these hearings that are coming up, I'm hoping when the Democrats on the committee and the Republicans on the committee lay out the evidence of everything that these MAGA folks did, these so-called patriots, all of these insurrectionists, all of the things that they did to overturn our elections, to usurp the power of our vote. Because remember, in this we cannot forget, that day was about, quote, stop the steal. Stop the certification of that election. However they want to frame it from now forward, it was a patriotic day of protest. It was a patriotic day of lobbying. It was a family day. It was like any other day. People were walking between the ropes. No, they were defecating on the floor. They were urinating on people's desks. They were smashing windows. They were destroying our house. They walked into your house and they took a giant dump on the floor and they rubbed it in the rug and they're telling you it's something. No. This is what we do every day. Because we love America. We love our house. And they expect all of us to buy it because they've bought it. How twisted is that? And we've got to understand, these hearings are not going to be for the MAGAs. They're brainwashed. They're lost. They're the fives. We're never getting them. These hearings are going to be for the sane and the rational. The people who've going, well, maybe the MAGA people are right. And when you see the evidence, remember that day. Remember the gallows. Remember the calls to hang Mike Pence. Remember police officers being stabbed with the American flag, being crushed, beaten. Remember, this is the law and order party. These are the people who love the flag, salute the flag. These people marched the Confederate flag through our Capitol. Telling you, somebody needs to be held accountable. And it's not just the minions and the idiots who went marching through the halls. They're the least of my concerns. It's those people who gave the tours. It's those people who planned and plotted and funded all of this stuff. It's the Benigno Mastrianos who took bus trips down. It's the people who riled and pointed and said, go. It's them. That's who we should be holding accountable. It's my representative, Scott Perry. He's another one. Love to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you missed any of the program, grab the podcast. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith